6 miles. We do not need the 6 miles. The reason we don't need the 6 miles is because we want everything to match. So if this one says feet and this one says feet, then we don't need this one that says miles. Okay? All right, it does say how long, which is good because we're talking about years as well. So how long? We got a length. That sounds like a distance to me. And we got the speed that it's moving. That sounds like a rate to me. So if we go back up here, something that has a distance or a length and a rate is distance equals rate times time. So down here, let's write D equals R times T. And then we're just going to plug in our numbers. So that distance we already know is 31,680 feet. Our rate is 400. And we don't know what T is. Which is good because that's what they're asking us for. How long? So how do we solve this for T? How do I get T by itself? Yeah?
You divide 400 into 31,000.
Yeah, so we divide both sides by 400 because that'll cancel it out next to the T and give us an answer. So if I divide both sides, T equals 79.2 years. Okay, I can't remember if they say to round. So if they say round to the nearest year, then it would just be 79. If they say round to the nearest tenth, 79.2. Okay? They could also say round to the nearest 10 of a year, not tenth, 10 of a year. So then you would round to 80 years. Okay, that does have a decimal in there. Okay, so the main thing on this is figure out which formula to use. But again, that view and example will tell you which formula at the very top of it. Okay, let's look at the next one. Charles Picot. Charles Picot can afford enough fencing to enclose a rectangular garden with a perimeter of 140 feet. If the width of his garden must be 30, find the length. Okay, so first let's draw a picture because we're talking about a rectangle. So, does rectangle work? Yes, it does. Awesome. Okay, rectangle. If the width of his garden is 30 feet, so we're going to put 30 here and 30 here. We want to find the length. So here's L, there's L. Okay, we need to figure out what L can be. So over to the side, I'm going to write down, just so I'm consistent, I'm going to write down my two categories. One of those is X. X is what we don't know. And then the width is 30. Okay, we know that the perimeter adds up to 140. So that is 60 plus 2 of those L's, which is X, equals 140. So we can solve that. So minus 60 2x equals 80. Divide that by 2. X equals 40. And are we asked about that? Yes, we are asked about the length, which is X. So L is 40 feet. Okay, I introduce it that way because in just a second we'll do one where it's not going to look exactly like that. It'll look a little bit more like the problems we just did. Okay, it says the average minimum temperature in Shanghai is 77 Fahrenheit. We want to find the equivalent temperature in degrees Celsius. So we know which formula to use. I'm going to write it down. That is F equals 1.8 C plus 32. This is 77 Fahrenheit, so we're going to plug that in to the F. Okay, it is not negative or next to, so when we plug it in, it does not have to be in parentheses. 77 equals 1.8 C plus 32. Subtract 32 and divide by 1.8. Anybody get our answer yet? I believe this is it. Double check me. $77 minus. It is? Okay. 45 divided by 1.8. Okay, 25 degrees. Okay. We know that Celsius should be a little lower than Fahrenheit, so that does make logical sense. We still want to check to make sure it makes logical sense. Okay? If the temperature in Shanghai is 77, that means people have to be able to live in it. So if you get a negative temperature, like a really negative temperature, or you get a really big temperature, you did something wrong, right? Think about your answer. Don't just answer it. Okay? It's not just a number anymore. It's an answer. The length of a rectangular road sign is 2 feet less than 3 times its width. Find the dimensions if the perimeter is 28. Okay? It says the length of a rectangular road sign. Go ahead and draw that rectangle, and then I'm going to have you try to work this one out. So the hardest part is getting those labels on. So if you were having trouble, I have put those labels down for you. So then solve from there. And remember, on that first step, you can combine your like terms. Okay, I got x equals 4. A common answer on this is 3, because for some reason on this, people subtract 4 from both sides. I don't know why, but that would get 24. 24 divided by 8. Okay, I've got my x. X is not the answer they're looking for. They're asking for both of the dimensions. So width is 4, but length is 4 times 3, which is 12 minus 2. Length is 10. Okay, we need to make sure it's logical. Width, length, there are 2 of each. So 2 4s, that's 8. 2 10s, that's 20. So 20 plus 8 is our 28. Okay. Up next, you are going to solve these problems. You're going to solve them without numbers, though. So all you're going to think about is what is happening to the letter you're trying to get alone, right? I always say, what is happening to X? So we're trying to get L alone, so what's happening to L? What's happening to it right here? It's being multiplied by width and height, right? W and H. So if it's being multiplied, we need to undo multiplication. So divide both sides by W and H by W and H. So the W cancels, the H cancels, so then we have L equals V, W, and H. And that's all we want to do is just solve for that. Okay? So no numbers involved. You're just undoing what's happening. Okay? We're following our same process. There's just no numbers. One thing to pay attention to is capital letters. They will count it wrong if it was capital and you don't type it in as capital. So this, if you don't type that V in as a capital, then they won't count it, because lowercase v means something different than uppercase V. Okay? So let's try the next one. Y equals mx plus b. Does that ring a bell? Have we heard that formula before? Slope-intercept form. That is the equation of a line. That's how we're going to graph stuff later. Okay? So it says solve for x. So we have y equals m times x plus b. What do we always undo first? The addition or subtraction or the multiplication and division? Addition and subtraction. We undo that first. Even though there's no numbers here, we still undo. If you, on the notes from last week, I said SAD-M at one point, the opposite of PEMDAS. You undo the subtraction or the addition first. So subtract b from both sides. That cancels, so y minus b equals mx. X is not alone yet. X is being multiplied by m, so we need to undo that by dividing both sides by m. That leaves our x by itself, and then our answer is going to be y minus b equals m. So this is just making you practice doing those without just thinking of the numbers. I want you to know the process, know why the process is happening. Okay, we're almost through. Just a couple more. Okay, this is the other formula for perimeter, but this is purely for a rectangle. Okay, perimeter equals 2L plus 2W. A lot of people think that's a 1, that is an L. Okay, we want to solve for W. Okay, so we always undo our addition or subtraction first. So we're going to undo this part first, whatever's being added or subtracted to it. So minus 2L from both sides of this equal sign, minus 2L. That cancels, so P minus 2L equals 2W. W is not alone yet, so we need to divide both sides by a 2. That cancels. Over here on the left side, a lot of people ask if this can cancel. It cannot. You have to cancel from every single part if you're going to cancel. So in order for this 2 to cancel, that has to have a 2 and that. Every part on the top has to have a 2 for this bottom 2 to cancel. Okay? So that is W equals P, again that's a capital P, minus 2L over 2. Okay, so you cannot simplify that unless there was a 2 on every single part. Okay, solve this one for C. You can do it one of two ways. I would multiply everything by 5 before starting. I would get rid of the fractions like you hopefully watched on Friday. Okay, so it's okay if you're not done yet, but I do want to talk through this one because it does address exactly what you learned from the swivel last week, and I might say it a little differently than I did on that swivel. So the first step always, for me, I will do it every time. So if you do it differently, you're just going to see different work for the rest of the year. The first step for me is to get rid of our fractions. Okay? I know the formula above had decimals. I'm just going to get rid of the fractions completely. How I'm going to do that is multiply by the common denominator. There's only one denominator in this whole thing, which is that 5. So we can multiply the whole thing by a 5. Okay? The whole thing, meaning every single part that's not inside a parentheses. Okay? So we need to multiply the F, this section, and this section. Keep in mind that this 9/5 and this C are still one part. Parts are distinguished by symbols. Okay? So that is now a 5F equals, okay, there are two ways to do this. I'm not sure if I said both of them on the video. So there's two ways to do this. You can multiply times the top and then divide by the bottom, or you can divide first and then multiply. Okay? So if I ever show work on this problem, I will do 5 times 9, which would be 45 over 5, and then simplify that. If I don't show work, it's because I did 5 divided by 5 is 1, and then multiply by the top. I like that better because then I don't have to deal with bigger numbers. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and then I multiply that by the top, which gives me a 9C. 5 times 32, that is that 150, What?
160.
160? Yeah, 160. 150 plus 10. So 160. Okay, what did I... Okay, so now we want to move all of everything away from C. So we need to subtract 160 from both sides. So 5F minus 160 equals 9C. And then we need to divide both sides by that 9. C equals 5F minus 160 over 9. Okay, we got one more problem. This last problem, you can see that I actually typed it on I didn't type it in the same way as all the other stuff. I went into the homework because everyone asked me about it, and I copied it in here, okay? Because everyone was asking me about this. So this is an architect designs a rectangular flower garden with a width of exactly 2/3 of the length. If 290 feet of fencing are to be used to enclose the garden, find the dimensions. Okay, so first we're talking about a rectangle. So draw a rectangle. Okay, next we've got two things that we're looking for, a length and a width. Which one of those is base? Which one of those is what we're basing everything on? It says the width is exactly 2/3 of the length. So yes, we are basing the width on the length. So the length is our x. The width is 2/3 of our x. 2/3 of the length. Okay? So let's write that down onto the rectangle. So x, 2 over 3x, and 2 over 3x. It says that the total is 290. So you can see that this is just like this problem, but we have a fraction, and so that's why people asked a lot of questions about this. Okay, so we need to combine all this stuff to get 290. So I'm going to show every step. 2 over 3x plus 2 over 3x plus x equals 290. Combine your like terms. Right now I'm just going to combine these and these, even though they're all x's with ones, so they're the same little, same exponent, or same letter, same little. Okay, but I'm going to combine the fractions because they have common denominators. So 4/3 x plus 2x equals 290. Now I want to multiply everything by 3 to get rid of my fractions. So here, multiply by 3. So that's going to be a 4x plus 6x equals, what's 290 times 3? 870? Yes, 870, that's correct. So you can see once we multiply everything times 3, this is a very simple problem right there. You can do the rest basically in your head. That's 10x equals 870. Divide both sides by 10, and that gives you 87. Okay, it does say we want the dimension, so we don't want x, we want x and 2/3 of x, so plug those in. The length is 87. The width is 2/3 of 87. If you don't know how to do that, take the big number, multiply it by the top, and then divide it by the bottom. So what's 87 times 2? And then divide that by 3. 87 times 2 is 174 divided by 3. 58. So there are two answers. So exact same steps as the one that was earlier in the notes, but we do have to solve with a fraction, which makes it a little bit harder. Okay, right now you've only got about 9 minutes because we did have a longer break in the middle. Is there any slide you need me to go back to or explain differently? Okay, let me know if I leave any of you behind. You can always go rewatch this Okay, I will post completed notes as well.